Hi, everybody. How's it going? This is Jeff with Issues With. Sorry about the technical difficulties. We're watching for Jack to join me here in just a second. I know you guys were checking him out just a few minutes ago. Trying something brand new here. Technology may not be our biggest friend. Hope everybody had a great free comic book day last week. I know Jack and I had a tremendous time at Heroes Aren't Hard to Find, the store in Charlotte, North Carolina, run by the great Shelton Drum. We interviewed Shelton. You may have seen that here on the page. We had such a tremendous turnout, such a great time meeting cosplayers. I'll tell you, I even got a chance to reconnect with a guy that was an artist back in the 1980s. And he was at some of those Heroes Cons that I went to. His name is Al Bigley. He was an artist. He worked for First Comics for a while, some other companies back in the late 80s, and now he's primarily a cosplayer. He was the guy dressed as Captain America when we were there last week. Really great, fun guy. Reached out to me afterwards and said hello, thanked us for being there, and we really had a good time. Hopefully, we'll get to see him again at HEROESCON coming up in June, and that is June 14th through the 16th. And we such a great lineup. There's some new names that were just announced yesterday on the lineup, and we are having a hard time figuring out who we're going to interview. Our goal is to shoot an entire season of Issues With episodes at HEROESCON this summer. Maybe as many as 15 episodes. That might be the max that we hit. And so far, there are about 35, 40 different names of people that I would love to interview and have on the show. Just to give you a little bit of a rundown of some of the people who are going to be there that have been announced so far. And there are more announcements forthcoming, so be on the lookout for that. Neil Adams, of course, he's a staple at conventions, and especially at HEROESCON. Recently announced Sergio Aragonés is going to be there. Dennis Cohen, Kelly Sue DeConnick, who recently redefined Captain Marvel at Marvel Comics, and much of her work is what the movie was based off of. She's going to be at HEROESCON. J.M. DeMatteis, along with his classic collaborators. At this point, we're talking over 30 years since the Justice League International comic was out, that J.M. DeMatteis, Keith Giffen, and Kevin Maguire wrote, drew collectively together. Was a huge hit back in the late 1980s, and it was one of my all-time favorites. I'm so happy to see the three of them, this great creative force, are going to be together at HEROESCON. Really looking forward to chatting with them. Colleen Doran is going to be there. She's just a tremendous artist, dates all the way back to the 80s. It's been a long time since she's been at HEROESCON, and we're happy to see that she's coming back. Dave Dorman, the cover painter artist, is going to be there. You've seen his work all throughout the 1990s, especially at Dark Horse Comics. He did covers for the Star Wars comics, Indiana Jones comics, Aliens comics, you name it. All of their licensed things that they had out there were covers by Dave Dorman. Such a tremendous talent, such a great guy. Steve Epting is going to be there. Mark Evanier, the writer, is going to be there. Matt Fraction, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez is going to be there. Now, a lot of people know Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, not only has four names, but he was the artist at DC Comics. When you go into Target or Walmart or any of those stores and you see DC Comics characters, Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman, on tumblers and mugs, if it's not the movie images, chances are it's going to be images that were drawn by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. Over 30 years ago, he was kind of the house artist. He defined the look and the style of DC Comics in the early 80s, and he is just a tremendous talent. Sanford Green is going to be there. Tom Grummett is going to be there. Bob Hall, artist from Marvel Comics back in the 80s. You know, all this talk about the Avengers movie, of course. Bob Hall was known for being the artist on the West Coast Avengers, maybe the lesser Avengers. I don't know. Maybe we'll see a West Coast Avengers movie at some point in the near future. It could happen. Also, just recently announced, Klaus Janson, the famous inker who's worked with Frank Miller. He inked Batman the Dark Knight, as well as Miller's Daredevil back in the day. Klaus Janson, met him a couple of years ago at a con. Great guy. It's tremendous to have him at the con as well. Horror artist Kelly Jones is going to be there for the very first time. That's what Shelton Drum told us last week when we saw him at Heroes. I can't believe Kelly Jones has never been there. Red Rain, the Batman meets Dracula Elseworlds book from the 90s, was one that he drew. Also drew a lot of Dark Horse Aliens comics as well. Great artist. I can't wait to meet Kelly Jones. Also, Jerry Ordway. He was responsible for Superman back in the 90s. Tim Sale, whose work on Batman is very, very memorable. Joe Staton, classic Green Lantern artist. Brian Stelfreeze, who recently made a really big name for himself with the relaunch of the Black Panther book. He's going to be there. Bill Sienkiewicz is going to be there. Charles Vest, Tim Vigil, Mark Waid, Mike Zeck, and so many more. More than we can actually count. Hey, look, it's some folks who are jumping into the conversation. James Casara is right there saying Al Bigley is a longtime friend and a super good guy. Boy, I will agree with that. James, thanks for the comment. I have autographs from Al from like 1988, 89, somewhere in there. Met him at the con. Really, really great guy. Like I said, Jack and I had such a great time. Jack Egan, my producer, had a great time down at Heroes. It was free comic book day. We got some really cool comics as well. I know Jack and I got sucked into the dollar bins. Oh my gosh, it's like a bottomless pit. You can just find so many great things out there. I did want to highlight one book that I picked up, and this wasn't from the dollar bins, but this was a book I had heard about in a podcast just a few weeks ago, and I thought, man, this sounds really, really intriguing. And the first 2 issues were out already. Couldn't get a hold of them in my local comic shop, so what I did was I picked them up at the Hero Store. They had both of them, and here we go. I'll show you right here. This is the Spider-Man Life Story, issue number 1, the 60s, issue number 2, Life Story, the 70s. So you can guess what's going on in the Spider-Man book. They're taking Spider-Man and they're telling stories in each issue covering each decade, and apparently it's going to go to the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and the 2010s as a miniseries. It's really great stuff. Issue number 1, Spider-Man, the Vietnam War. Issue number 2, of course, there's a mirrored disco ball there, right there. So 70s disco. Get your Spidey disco on. It's written by Chip Zdarsky, drawn by Mark Bagley. Really, really good stuff, and I highly recommend you check it out. Also, of course, Free Comic Day comes with a lot of free comic books, and it was May the 4th. May the 4th was last Saturday. It was Free Comic Book Day. It was also a couple of days after Peter Mayhew had passed away. Legendary Peter Mayhew, who played Chewbacca in all of the Star Wars movies. And we are really sad to see him go. You know, just as a personal note, my stepdaughter loves Chewbacca, tremendous Chewbacca fan. And we were at Disney a few years ago, and we went into the meet the characters part of Disney. And she met Chewbacca, and it was just this really, truly wonderful, emotional moment. This 7-foot tall dude in a Chewbacca suit, she ran up and was like hugging him, and was really emotionally overcome. The power of these stories, the power of these characters, and the actors who bring them to life is something that can never be overstated. They're significant. They make a significant impact on the people that are affected by and inspired by the work that they do. Peter Mayhew sadly passed away just a little over a week ago, and I'm really kind of sad to know that he is not going to be at a con where I'll get to meet him in the near future. I'm going to be somewhere in the upcoming weeks where I will get a chance to meet his successor, Jonas Suotomo, I think I'm saying that right, who is playing Chewbacca now. Of course, Peter Mayhew had difficulty walking and standing in his later years, but he did reprise the role in The Force Awakens, and he was there with Harrison Ford for that classic Chewie, we're home moment in the trailer. So we're really going to miss him, But Star Wars, May the 4th, Star Wars, of course, big part of the comic book world again at Marvel Comics. You know what, I have a lot of those original 1970s and 80s Marvel comics with Star Wars. Some of them are in great condition. Let me tell you, my first 12 or so issues of it, though, not so great, because I read the crap out of those books back in the day. They're probably worth a ton of money if they were in mint condition, but they're not. I'm really glad to see Star Wars back over at Marvel Comics, and they're doing such great work. This is a free preview of some of the things going on in Star Wars, including, and talk about synergy and crossover, right here, Galaxy's Edge. That is the name of the Disney Star Wars park that is opening, and there's, of course, going to be a comic book tie-in. I'm a sucker. I'll buy it. Why not? Of course I will. I'm loving the new Star Wars comics. There are tons of them out there. More titles now in Star Wars than I could ever imagine before. And also picked up, of course, the other hot one, the Avengers. Free Comic Book Day, Avengers, right here. You can pick it up and enjoy it. course, on the back cover, they're advertising War of the Realms. That is the latest Marvel crossover that's going on right now. But you know what? And I'm such a sucker for these. I was flipping through this thing, and I came across one page really, really got me. And this is, and Jack, my producer Jack, who's watching, this is going to get you too. Buddy, check this out. Hang on. There we go. Wolverine, ninjas, in the rain. You got to be kidding me, right? So this, apparently, and I'm going to go get this now because I'm such a sucker for this sort of thing, is a book called Savage Avengers #1. Take a look right there. We see Venom, we see the Punisher, we see Wolverine, and holy crap, Conan the Barbarian, who's back at Marvel Comics now. So Conan is going to be in an Avengers team-up book with the Punisher, Wolverine, and Venom called Savage Avengers #1. And if the artwork is as good as it looks in this preview, I can't wait to pick this one up. It's going to be a ton of fun. And we're going to have a ton of fun at HEROESCON coming up June 14th through the 16th. Not to be missed. So looking forward to doing the issues with interviews, looking forward to sharing them with you. What we're going for here is really deep, insightful conversations with comic book creators, writers, and artists. We're not looking for generic, who's your favorite character, that sort of what inspired you. We want to know what makes them tick. We want to get deep inside the creators and the people behind the comic books. And this interview style show will allow us the chance to do that. And we thank Shelton Drum for including us in HEROESCON, where we're going to have so much fun filming. We're also going to be announcing at some point in the near future a co-host for the show who will be there at HEROESCON and will be on the floor of the convention. And we'll be asking questions from the fans so we can get some peculiar questions. And Jack and I, we did a test run of this at another con last year. And we had this really weird, this sort of inspired us in a strange way. We had this really weird kind of question. We're talking to people on the floor, asking them, hey, if you could ask your favorite artist any question, what would you ask them? And there was this one girl, clearly, I think she was cosplaying as Harley Quinn, and she was saying, we've recently seen the Batman, the Black Label Batman book that came out from DC, which showed a little more of the bat pole than we'd ever seen before in comics. So much so that it really made people crazy to see full frontal nudity of Batman. Tastefully done, I should say, tastefully done. Sort of in the shadows, but you could still make things out. And I guess everybody's always wondered what the bat pole looked like. And so we got to see it. DC got a little scared, though, and future prints of that has been covered over, and they're no longer showing the bat penis for whatever reason. I have a copy of it, though, so a lot of people who got the first printing have a copy of it as well. But this girl at the con, she asked, hey, now that we've seen that, can we see the Jokers? We thought, oh my gosh, that's a crazy, crazy question, what on earth would that look like? It was a pretty scary thought. But not to say that that's what we're looking for, but we would love to have interesting questions like that. And Jack and I had a really good laugh over this and thought, hey, maybe we could go around to artists and say, all right, this was a fan question. Give us your drawing, your interpretation. What would that look like? And we'll see. We'll see what happens. But we got lots of fun stuff in store, so don't worry about that. Heroes Online is the way you find out about HEROESCON. It's going to be great. Shelton's going to be great. He's got a great staff. It's just going to be a ton of fun. We'll see you in Charlotte for sure at HEROESCON on June 14th through the 16th. Right there it is, folks. Right there it is. Find them on Facebook, Instagram, all the usual places. Hashtag HEROESCON, heroesonline.com. That's where you find out all about that. Hey, we got some special stuff planned. Next week, I'm going to be out of town. I'm going to be in Detroit, Michigan. Why, might you say? Not for the waters, but just for the camaraderie. I have, in recent months, been working with a couple of great, legendary comic book creators on a kind of a publishing venture. And you might recognize the names Mike Grell and Arvell Jones. Both of them are iconic comic book artists and creators. And somehow I wound up in the midst of this conversation with them and with another person who, over a course of several months, came up with a plan to do a Kickstarter for one of Mike Grell's classic characters that is a creator-owned character. We did the Kickstarter, and it was incredibly successful. And we're going to be publishing the first issue of that comic coming up in July. So be on the lookout for that. Maggie the Cat is the character from the John Sable universe that Mike Grell created back in the 80s. Mike's looking to bring back a lot of his classic characters. I've been friends with him now for several years, and was a huge fan of his since I was 6 years old and saw his Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes comics. And it's kind of pinched me honor that I'm now a friend of his and that he was asking me to help consult on this project. So I'm going to be going to Detroit. I'm going to meet up with those guys, and we're going to do a little business with the company, which is called Master Stroke Studios. And we're going to get things rolling. It's going to be pretty exciting. But while I'm there, I'm going to have the opportunity not only to interview Arvel and Mike and talk about Master Stroke and the upcoming plans that they have, but also I'm going to interview somebody that when Jack and I first started talking about this, one of the names that came up that I really seriously wanted to get on the show and interview is a fairly well-known writer and artist named William Messner Loebs. And he worked on Wonder Woman, he worked on Flash, just another one of those great classic writers and artists. Well, William, Bill, as he goes by, he lost his arm, his right arm, although he's still working. He's still doing a lot of work, still doing a lot of shows and signing things, but a few years ago he fell on hard times. And there was a story that came out in the media about a little over a year ago at this point about how he was temporarily homeless and I believe working as a custodian at a church and just barely scraping by, he and his wife, and having a lot of difficulties. Well, thanks to the comic book community rising up, there were some GoFundMes that were started for Bill and a lot of support coming his way. Well, I'm happy to say Bill, who lives in the Detroit area, has agreed to sit down with me and do an interview. And when I heard about his story and I heard about the way the fans were responding and trying to help him get back on his feet, it made me realize this is what we can do with the issues with this show. We can find these great stories and we can talk about real, human, deep, emotional things with these creators. And I'm so looking forward to sitting down with William Messner Loebs next week in Detroit. I'll also be sitting down with Mike Grell and Arvel Jones, and you'll see it all live right here on the Issues With Facebook page. We're going to be streaming it live, and I look forward to talking to you guys and seeing the comments as they pop up. But also, Doc Shaner is going to be in the Detroit area, and we met him a while back and did a test interview with him. Had a lot of fun. Great guy. Hoping to reconnect with him. Fantastic, relatively new artist that's out there working on Supergirl at the moment. Has worked on Shazam, the other Captain Marvel. We don't talk about the Captains Marvel that are floating out there and the controversy around that. But greatly looking forward to that. So we'll check with you guys next week when we're doing some great interviews with some great classic writers and artists. Also, and finally, just the weird, in the world of the weird, something strange happened to me. It was right before we went to Free Comic Book Day. I think it was still in a bit of a haze when it happened. As I'd mentioned, I'm friends with Mike Grell, the writer and artist of acclaim. Has been working in comics since 1973, creator of the Warlord at DC Comics, one of the definitive writers and artists on Green Arrow for DC Comics. The TV show that's on right now owes much of its look and feel to the great Mike Grell, my friend. And about a year and a half, maybe longer ago, maybe 2 years ago at this point, I was approached by the publisher, Tomorrow's Publishing. They had a writer who was working on a book about Mike Grell that was looking for a little help. Dewey Cassell was writing a book, and they put me in touch with Dewey because they knew I had in contact with Mike, and Dewey asked me if I wanted to help him write this book. And eagerly I jumped on board. Well, the book came out last October from Tomorrow's Publishing, and it's called Mike Grell, Life is Drawing Without an Eraser. Right there it is in hardcover. You can get it everywhere. Dewey and I worked on this book. It's quite a great book about the career of Mike Grell. You see some of his creations there on the back. But also, The book has been nominated for an Eisner Award, named for famed Will Eisner, the comic book creator of The Spirit and many other products out there in the comics world. Will Eisner is one of those icons of the industry, and every year at San Diego Comic-Con, they do an award ceremony honoring the best in the comic book industry. And comic-related book is a category in which this book, Life is Drawing Without an Eraser, is nominated. It's one of the 5 nominees in that category. I'm still a little bit stunned, to tell you the truth. I'm making plans to head to San Diego in July to be at the award ceremony and to I have no ambition whatsoever that we'll win the category, but holy cow, just one of those once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. And I could not go at this point. So I'll be there at San Diego Comic-Con, and I'll be at the Eisner Awards, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it on Issues With, and maybe doing some live from the Eisner Awards broadcasting. Now, in some other categories, if you're a professional in the comic book industry or you're a comic shop owner, you can vote in the Eisner Awards. Hey, throw a vote our way if you get a chance to. But also, this is something else I'm going to share with you. The Führer and the Tramp. This is a book that I got from Kickstarter. Kickstarter has become a great place for writers and artists to get their books seen and noticed and even published and take it directly to the fans themselves. Well, this book came out last year and I got it. It's also nominated for an Eisner. So if you get a chance, go in there and give them a little love too. So here we are, coming to the end of this breakdown episode. We got a lot of things really exciting coming up, as well as the Issues With interviews that we're doing. We're going to be doing some more of these. Like I said, next week I'll be in Michigan. I'll be talking to William Messner-Loebs, Arvell Jones, Mike Grell, hopefully Doc Shaner. So we'll have a full weekend of chats and videos for you from next week. Also, working out, nailing down an interview with Doom Patrol, legendary Doom Patrol artist Steve Lytle, who is really one of my all-time favorite artists from the comic industry. Did not really have a long career in comics, but is still just considered one of the greatest artists of the Doom Patrol when it came back in the 1980s, as well as Legion of Superheroes. He worked on that book. Working out with Steve to get a time for him to come on the show. Also, Jeremy Whitley, who's making some real news out there writing for Marvel Comics right now. We met Jeremy a while back and did a test interview with him. Looking forward to seeing him at HEROESCON as well. So got a couple of those interviews scheduling now, lining them up between now and HEROESCON. A lot of stuff, full plate. I hope you guys enjoy what we're doing. Let us know. Post your comments. Share the videos. Definitely check out the free Comic Book Day video from last week. And let us know what you think. And we'll have more news for you coming up really, really soon. And Issues With, it's going to be big. It's going to be really, really big. We're going to try to shoot an entire season of episodes during the weekend of HEROESCON. And we hope to see as many of you as possible there in Charlotte, North Carolina, the weekend of June 14th, 15th, and 16th, Father's Day. So all you dads, come on out. All you moms, bring the dads and the kids and enjoy HEROESCON, because I know we will. All right. So I just broke it all down for you. Hey, wait a minute. That's why it's called the breakdown, right? That's right. So that's the breakdown. We'll see you soon.